Hi everyone, good evening. Thank you so much for joining in. We'll just wait for Kanika from MindPeers to join us. But I just wanted to introduce you all to the topic today, set the context, have our other panelists introduce to all of you, and take you all through the agenda. So, starting with myself, I'm Pinkasha from Pascare. I do marketing at Pascare. Today, our topic for the webinar is mental health at work, the role of HRs in creating resilient workplace. So, mental health as a topic has been reshaped. The expectations around it have been changed, especially in the Indian corporate workforce. From early career professionals seeking emotional safety to mid career employees demanding value alignment, the message is very clear. Culture, flexibility, and belonging, they aren't just perks anymore, they are the non negotiables. Today, we are moving beyond awareness, we are moving towards action. With insights from our previous webinar that we hosted in August, where we spoke about the evolving role of HRs, mental health was a topic that came out the most important as the most important one. And that made us select this as a topic for this webinar. So I want to begin with introducing all the panelists. Let me just check if Kanika is here. Thank you, Kanika, for joining. I can see you. You have joined the webinar. Just made you the co-host. If you could come in on the camera,
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Great, and I'm up here as well. I hope
Yes.
you're able to see me. I'm not able to see myself, but that's all right.
Yeah, I
Some
can
issue,
see you.
but we'll go on.
Awesome. So we have with us Kanika. So I would love to introduce all the panelists to you all, starting with Siddharth. Thank you so much, Siddharth, for joining. He's leading people strategy, where employee well-being directly impacts how doctors learn and practice healthcare. Uh, Siddharth Jain is joining us from Daily Rounds. Daily Rounds is a healthcare organization with a focus on medical education. Welcome, Siddharth. Along with Siddharth, we have
Thank you.
Rishabh Goenka, Senior Manager Global Benefits at Multiplier, architecting benefits program across borders and understanding diverse mental health needs globally. Multiplier is building best-in-class benefits beyond boundaries. So welcome, Rishabh. Thank you so much for joining.
Thanks for having me. Hello, everyone.
And Kanika is joining us. She's the founder at MindPeers, mental health expert. She's building solutions that make workplace therapy accessible and stigma free. Thank you so much for joining, Kanika. Pleasure to have you. And we have Aditya Malik. He's the Chief Revenue Officer at Pascare. At Pascare, we are driving employee benefits innovation with mental wellness at the forefront. Thank you, Aditya, for joining. Super happy for you to be here.
Yeah, thanks to Siddharth, Rishabh, and Kanikar. Really look forward.
All right, so let's get going. For this webinar, we would how we'll drive the agenda is we'll divide this into 4 to 5 segments where we focus on uh, mental health at the forefront. So, starting with this very important statistic that you all can see on your screen, that 76% of Indian employees today report feeling burnt out at work, and only 12% say that their organization provides adequate mental health support. So pay comes first, but purpose sustains. Once the basic needs are met, purpose and benefits matter the most. So how do we normalize seeking help? Today, Gen Zs or today Indian employees like me and you, we all are seeking emotional safety, value alignment. So, in this segment, I would like to talk about the state of mental health at our organizations. My first question would be to you, Siddharth. What some tell us about some patterns that you are seeing amongst the employees at daily rounds or from your previous experience. How has the conversation around mental health evolved in your experience?
Thanks, Pinkasha. So, for us, actually, mental well-being and burnout takes on a very particular role because a lot of our employees and our target audience are actually doctors who are in or are preparing for one of the most difficult roles in the world, being a healthcare provider. And coincidentally, by their training, they're already aware of how mental stress and mental well-being works. But having that recognition doesn't mean that they're able to cope with it or deal with it. And then coming to the fact that a lot of them are now Generation Z. This is a generation which has seen COVID, and seen a really difficult time in, like, once in a lifetime kind of an event. So they're all more open and vocal about mental well-being, about purpose in their work, and about alignment with their work. And they seek mental well-being and psychological and physiological safety as a part of their role and not as a benefit or as an add-on. So the way that we've tried to build this in the organization is basically ensure that this is not just like a HR responsibility or an HR program that we do, but it's a shared responsibility across leadership, managers, and employees themselves, where we continuously improvise the workplace so that their physiological and psychological safety needs are met.
Uh, Rishabh, do you want to add something here? I had a question for you. What are some of the practices that you've seen Indian companies are adapting with respect to mental health initiatives?
Thanks for that, Pinkasha. I think from a very Indian perspective, right, I think there are two, three things that come to my mind. The first being just us being Indians is just a question of reducing the stigma, right? Or if I put it in better words, maybe some literacy for people to start accepting and understanding that these things are normal. It is okay for you to reach out to seek help. If required, go to a professional. So I think reduction in terms of the kind of stigma there is to have better literacy programs to normalize these things is one of the first things that can be done probably on an individual level. You, I, everybody on this call can have better literacy, can take steps to ensure that we approach this in a better way. Second, I think, is a little on a org level, from an organization perspective, to have a buy-in from the leadership to set the culture right that it's all right, or for organizations to sponsor some of these programs, which is becoming very normal in today's day and age, right? And I think it's just a growing practice for almost every organization to give this as a benefit to each of their employees. The third, I think, comes from a support perspective, right? To have the right set of partners to be able to support, or to have the right policies around this to support the employees when they have the need. So I think it's all of these three factors that would actually propel uh, people in large volumes to move forward towards making the state of mental health much better at work, because in such fast-paced environments today, most people working out of a tier two city, it's very normal for burnouts to happen, but uh, people need to start recognizing and being able to give those tools to be able to help them better. Right? I think that's my take on it.
Yeah, I agree with you, Rishabh. Kanika, Mind Peers work with so many corporates. So, what's the most surprising thing that you've learned about uh, the today's workforce, including the Gen Zs, with their approach to mental health, their expectations?
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Natasha, for the question. So, see, I think I'm not surprised by the way Gen Zs are approaching mental health, right? Because I think Gen Zs are the ones who are making this conversation very normal in the workplace. They're being very genuine, they're being very authentic about everything. So, there are just two things that I would like to say. One, from our experience, it's very important for an organization to understand that when Gen Zs and millennials are being transparent about mental health as a benefit, they are not coming just from a treatment or a disorder perspective, right? Very latest WHO report and all these, US. I mean, unfortunately, we have more US driven data than Asian data. But what it is telling us is that most of these employees are in the mild zone. They are not in the treatment or severe zone, which where we need to understand that this mild zone is their help, is their ask for help in their cognitive performance, in their executive functioning. They are not saying, hey, please take care of my severe anxiety or of my clinical depression. What they're saying is, please help me to perform better. Please help me to find my purpose. Please help me every day to keep me motivated at work. And this is in alignment with, we all are talking about the needs, the basic needs. We need to understand that the basic need of a Gen Z and millennial is now very high up in the Maslow's hierarchy. If you're all familiar with that, Gen Zs and millennials are sitting somewhere at, psychological belongingness. So those are the things that are driving. So to me, the surprise element from Gen Z on mental health is nothing as such. It is a very basic help that, hey, help me with my executive functioning, help me with regulating my emotions. But what surprises me is the approach that probably leadership and organizations are taking towards it. Because somewhere when we work with corporates, and I'll be very transparent about it, we are seeing that it is being dealt with in a very treatment or just a very therapy way. We are coming with a very singular mindset that I think needs to change. And I'm happy to talk about it later, in the further discussions that we do. I hope this helps.
Okay. Yeah, we'll definitely discuss this. This brings me to our second segment where we actually,
Sorry, I think Aditya wanted to say
hey,
something. I sorry for
Thank you, Kanika. No,
sorry.
that's fine. I just want to take a second to maybe check with Rishabh, since he's probably dealing with teams, partner teams, or teams that he leads around the world. Any insights or contrast that struck you in terms of how your teams in other geographies approach the topic, Rishabh? I was curious to understand.
Sure. So, um, thanks for the question. It's kind of contrasting when on the other side of the globe, when people do not see a mental health offering as a part of what employees get when they join, say, as a part of, say, the onboarding kit, right? So it's more like what Kanika said. It's like a P0. You have to have that in place, and I think it's just a matter of time uh, across the world. And very rightly pointed out, especially after events such as COVID, right, where everybody across the world had very varied experiences. And a lot of things kind of uh, gave them, I mean, it's now been able to come out in the forefront for people to address some of these problems, which are probably just lying brushed under the mat, right? Maybe COVID gave us that opportunity to bring it or to maybe normalize it. But how I have seen this is it's very normal to have the right set of tools, to have the right set of partners set up. And it's great to see that folks, at least in India now, are moving towards that. It may be happening slowly, but it's definitely making progress.
Thanks, Rishabh. Yeah.
Sorry. I want to run a poll on the same topic. We've discussed about uh, what is happening at workplaces right now. So, folks, allow me to run the poll. We would love for you to answer it. I'm just launching it. You'll see it on your screens. What's the number one mental health challenge in your company right now? Okay, so as you can see the results on your screen, employee burnout is like the number one mental health challenge right now. It's good to know that you've recognized that there is burnout happening, and then uh, we have a strong tie between leadership buy-in and low program utilization, which brings us to our second segment around how to create what is the role of the proper benefits and support system. Uh, what's the gap now that we've realized that there are gaps? What do employees actually need? So I was reading a report where 80% of Indian corporates actually say that they have a well-defined EAP program, employee assistance program, but the usage is very low, only 8 to 12%. Percent employees have utilized it. So what can be the problems? What could be the gaps? Is it the trust gap? Is it something? Is it a confidentiality concern? So, Aditya, I would like to ask you a question here: that what mental health benefits? Uh, how do you design the right benefits that feel relevant and that can actually help people adopt them in the right way?
Um, sure, Pinkasha. First of all, a quick reaction to the stat you've put up there, right? Um, my experience has been a little different. So what, we speak to around probably 500 or more companies every month around their benefits program and design. And what we kind of see is typically maybe 30%, 30 to 40% of organizations inquiring about mental wellness sort of benefits. So I think it skews more as you get into larger organizations. There's probably more awareness or sophistication around it, but definitely with mid-sized ones, I feel it's probably less than half where the awareness and the intent is there. Um, and in terms of what kind of benefits, at least our experience has been right now, majority of folks are at a baseline level where they say some kind of support from a therapist or a counselor or a psychologist or a psychiatrist in some cases is what they're looking for. And still, I think only 10-15% of organizations talk to us about sort of full-fledged EAP programs where a lot of different specialists and self-help tools or any kind of platform gets involved. Um, and frankly, when it comes to designing things, this is probably still a bit of a check in the box. So I don't think people deep dive a lot into different aspects of the support being provided beyond just confirming, yes, that there is some degree of support, right? And maybe I'll add on one more thing that just because we have a bit of an audience, I think the confidentiality concern is something that's probably still not fully sensitized. So across our like 2000 customers, we do run into instances where people want to understand HRs, in fact, ask for usage reporting at an individual level, and we can't provide it, and there is some back and forth. So I think there is still some degree of trust gap and respect for confidentiality that probably we need to improve. Yeah, I think that's what I see in the class. Actually, Kanika would have a very good line of sight on this. Kanika, doesn't the 80% number strike you as a bit high from this survey?
Yeah, definitely. I was going to point that out that 80% having a well-defined EAP is looking a bit over-reported to me for sure. The usage rate, even 8 to 12%, again, I feel very overrated because when we take up clients and when they're coming to us, they literally very transparently tell us that, hey, this is just 1 to 2%. And I'm happy to also explain that. But Aditya, I mean, either I'll wait for Pinkasha to talk or I'm happy to explain a bit on it.
Please,
However you guys like.
please go ahead, Kanika.
All right. So, look, couple of things, and I'll just customize it also according to the, what the poll said, right? So, one, we are talking about employee burnout. And if quickly, I don't know if people can write in the chat box or not. See, one thing we all have to accept is that the stress levels, whether at work or whether in your life, they're not going to reduce. Humanity is becoming very complex, right? So our problems are getting added on every day, they're not getting subtracted. And a lot of times through our EAP programs, what we are trying to do is we are saying that, hey, uh, I want to reduce stress completely, and I want therapists to do that. And at the same time, the kind of workload and all we're giving also remains the same. And that kind of that narrative does not sit well with any human, I mean, let alone employees. So I think the way to work around it, and what we've seen working for our clients as well, is that please build your programs around the fact that stress is not going to get less, but how do you build systems to navigate that? How do you upskill your employees to build resilience programs or resilience, tools that if I'm very stressed, I'm feeling emotionally unregulated, I'm always maybe reacting to situations rather than responding. Now, how do I learn to build, let's say, my prefrontal cortex exercising to understand how to control my anger? I'm just giving an example. So what we need is more of programs which are not promising to reduce stress, because look, that is practically impossible. But we need more programs that can help you to build how to navigate that burnout, how to navigate that stress. That's the first thing. The second thing was on leadership buy-in. I love that, and that is very true, right? We have seen HR teams, we have seen benefit leaders introducing programs, but they fall flat because as soon as an employee even tries to access it, the leader feels, ki, "Yaar, ye kya kar rahe ho? Why are you even doing it?" They don't trust them. And that is where even Aditya, to your previous questions, now I'll tell you a big difference, right? We are working with Southeast Asia clients, and one thing that they're doing differently is instead of starting with technology and everything, like, they're not, most of them are not going to their vendors to say, please give me everything. No, they start with assessing what is needed. And the second thing they start with is a very conversational dialogues where both leaders and teams are involved. I'm just going to give you an example of this company I really look up to, HubSpot. Now, HubSpot does this exercise on every Friday. They have made it a mandate. This is outside India, that the leaders will take 1 hour of reflective sessions with their teams, and they are going to be vulnerable. They are going to talk about the challenges that they went through. Now, when leaders become vulnerable, you're automatically creating a space for your employees to open up, which no technology, which no therapy can do at this point. So, what I'm saying is, you need to start creating these small peer to peer, empathy led programs, reflective sessions, building vulnerability as a skill set, all of those things for your leadership to buy in better. And for whoever is interested, WHO, not WHO, sorry, WEF, World Economic Forum, came out with a research in February this year. And they said that by 2030, because of AI also instilling a lot of fear, the top most skill that is going to be needed by organizations is resilience and the agility to adapt. That's what they are saying leaders are going to need. So I think instead of going for technology and all of those things, and a lot of, let's say, therapists and all, we need to start giving a platform for conversational dialogues. And just the last bit that I want to touch upon, because we were talking, Aditya, you also mentioned therapy and therapeutic programs, etc. Recently, we guys did this survey with 78,500 employees. You all will be surprised the utilization on coaching is much more bigger than therapy. And that is telling you something. People, like I said again, therapy is a very clinical intervention to mental health. And that is not the problem that we are facing right now. The epidemic is in the middle spectrum. And that's where you also need to start seeing performance coaching, life coaching, things like that need to be instilled in your EAP. So these are just the three things that I would say, three gaps which can actually make very quick, I would say, improvements or changes in your organization.
Can I add a quick anecdote, Pinkasha, before you move on to the next speaker? Something Kanika said just reminded me. I was doing an exit interview for a leader in my sales operations team, And while doing the exit interview, he opened up and he said, "You know what? I even reached out to the counselor on the app to ask whether I'm making the right choice of leaving the company and am I thinking about it the right way." I was like, wow, that's interesting that you needed a sounding board for your decision-making process and you reached out to the counselor on the app as the. So, I mean, it is in line with sort of more coaching than any sort of therapeutic intervention, but he wanted somebody to sound off and he found that useful. It's very much in line with what you were.
I would like to ask Siddharth a question about how does mental health uh, reflect on a doctor's part? Do they admit it? How is the doctors community accepting the EAP programs? Are they adopting it? Or yeah, so would love to hear from you, Siddharth.
Right. Thanks again. So, interestingly, again, this also has a generational angle to it. So, I've seen doctors in my family in the previous generation, all throughout their careers, they've battled stress the way everybody else has, right? But of late, like the current generation of doctors, like what we see now, they're more aware about it. So, of course, that and also I think even the curriculum in the medical colleges, etc., is also evolved and started to play a lot more emphasis on mental well-being or psychology, etc., altogether, so that this generation of doctors is more aware. And given these stats, I think we probably stand out as an exception, because here with us, when we introduced the EAP program, we started off by doing initial, initial employee education and sensitization. But we saw that this picked up very fast. We are actually at a 15 to 20% utilization rate right now from our workforce. And because two things. One is that doctors, yes, naturally they were very open, and that has also had like a ripple effect, not that the doctors interact with the other employees as well. And then everybody's kind of, in our organization, we see it as a very open culture in terms of reaching out to the EAP counselors in terms of talking about any kind of problems that they have. What we've seen actually, interestingly, is that a lot of the discussion is not about the workplace. It's actually about things outside of work. And that, because of course, you have around like one third of your life, of your days spent at work, but a lot of it is impacted by what's happening outside, right? And then people also feel that decisions that you make outside of the workplace for your life are more permanent in nature. Of course, work is something that, yes, you can experience, you can evolve, and it can still change. So that actually brought us to another revelation. We then expanded this program to not just our team members, but for their family members as well. Because if there is somebody who's dealing with this in your family, it is bound to affect how you come to the show up at the workplace. And that actually had a even better effect. So we've now had this program run for employees and their immediate family members as well. And we've seen that that has actually increased the utilization, also increased awareness much more. And it's also, again, it's also a lot about trust and confidentiality, because especially say for a even for a non-medico, when they want to reach out for any assistance program, how do they know that this person will actually help me? With the organization providing or vouching for a particular partner, they feel that the first step is basically easier, that they know this is something that is say checked in by the organization, and maybe it's easier for them to trust. So that ways, in our organization, Touchwood, we've seen a good utilization, yes. And definitely doctors, we see that doctors are under tremendous amount of stress, because even both competitive in terms of their careers, and also the kind of workload that this career puts on your mental well-being and your physical capabilities as well.
Thanks for sharing this, Siddharth. Uh, so you rightly said that it has a very generational connection as well. Do you think actually that brings me to the third segment where we wanted to talk about the role of AI in building the right wellness programs and to also measure the impact. We've learned that digitization, having things on an app, having a trusted partner vetted by the company does add a lot of value to the adoption numbers. But what's the role of AI? AI can provide anonymous support, it reduces the stigma, but to be truly helpful, it needs the data about the individual. So, how do you balance anonymity with personalization? Where's the line? Uh, anyone, this is a question for all, if anyone wants to answer it first.
I'd probably say, AI right now is a great tool to basically, again, to be the sounding board, even without, having to go to somebody and without actually having to reveal your identity. It's possible to just ask it as a question saying that, there is this XYZ person, he or she has that XYZ situation in life. How can I advise them to deal about it? And probably get the answer for yourself without having to really talk about, whether it is you actually or somebody else. But yes, that's, I think I again probably have, maybe Kanika, an expert, could answer it in a, like more rounded off way.
Yeah, I would be interested to hear from Kanika. Are you building some solutions which are powered by AI around mental health?
Yeah, Aditya. And so that I absolutely also agree with you. So again, very quickly, what we have done is as mind peers, we are very firm on the fact that therapists will not be replaced by AI. At least we are not going to replace therapists and coaches by AI. So that's one. But then on the other hand, what we have done is we've built these two very powerful AI agents. Now, the first agent is actually called an outcome agent, and it is answering in the poll. A lot of people said we cannot measure impact. So what our outcome agent is doing is our outcome agent is understanding the biomarkers, the behavioral aspect of the person, the physical aspect of the person, and merging it with the self-assessment and, the inputs that the person gives in a very subjective manner. And then accordingly, the comments are made and the AI tells them that if to a coach, what is the predictive outcome you can get out of it? Will your burnout improve? Be more confident. So that's where we are showing the ROI. And I don't know how many like of you know over here, even small things. For example, today if someone is low on their vitamin D, which most of the women get after 30, vitamin D and B12, you're 30 to 40% more prone to go through mood disorders. This way, the outcome agent helps with a lot of ROI driven thing. And the second agent that we have is called a coping mechanism agent. Now, this is again linking back to what I said at the beginning. Mental health is not just about therapy. And said, you know what, I wish I could, or maybe I did not feel psychologically safe to speak up. So the agent is going to give them customized tools to improve their public speaking. So the next time they can talk more or they can contribute more to that meeting. So that's just a small example. And as far as the question on data and AI and the boundaries are concerned, from an organizational perspective, all I would recommend to all the benefit leaders and HRs that have joined is please always question 3 to 4 things. Your partner who is using technology, A, should be HIPAA compliant, ISO 27001 compliant, as well as GDPR compliant if if you have global presence. And fourth of all, now there is an ISO certificate for AI tools as well. So please question them on that AI ISO certification as well. Those things immediately cover you off to say that okay, the privacy statements are are in place, compliances are in place, and companies have to be very transparent about how the data is being used. It's similar to say, like how Apple Health and all the wearables today tell you that I'm going to use your data because I want to give you personalization and I want to show you outcomes. So it's very similar. Yeah. So I hope this helps.
Thanks, Kanika. Rishabh, I have a question for you. Different, like Kanika rightly mentioned, that different countries have different data privacy laws, stricter regulations in some Asian countries. How do you navigate AI-powered mental health tools when data privacy concerns vary so dramatically?
Thanks, Natasha. I think again, uh, for us as leaders, it's very important to figure out the right partners, right? Having the like I mentioned earlier, it's very important to have the right set of tools. Having the right tools, having the right laws governing your data privacy is, I think, of paramount importance because the last thing that you'd want is for an employee to start adopting or start seeking help and then understanding that, the data is all over the place. So I think it's more on the kind of partners that we rely on. Again, this is something that is of a specialty. We go to a doctor when we're not feeling too well. We um, go to specialists for everything. We hire specialists across different roles. So I don't see a reason for anybody to consider this as a generalist practice and not go to a specialist, right? So um, that's just my take on this. And across different parts of the world, we've been fortunate enough to have those partnerships with the right set of organizations so far. And I'm glad that people are able to make the most of this, and that's just growing every week, every month, every quarter.
Yeah. Okay, so before we jump on to the next segment, I wanted to do a quick poll again. So I'm launching this poll. What do your employees complain the most about? Is it the micromanagement? Is it the work-life imbalance? Is it the limited growth opportunities, lack of communication, or no feedback mechanisms? So I can see very clearly work-life imbalance is something that employees complain the most about. That brings us to our fourth segment, which is that how do we train our managers to have these sensitive conversations? Our data says that only 23% of managers receive mental health conversation training. Um, Today, employees look at managers as not just coaches, but also uh, people that they can reach out to for anything, any help. So training managers to have a sensitive mental health conversation is very, very important. So do our managers today know how to spot signs of burnout, how to have safe non-judgment conversations, how to know when or how to escalate it to a professional help if needed? Uh, Siddharth and Rishabh, if you guys can pitch into this question that I have, that are we training the managers? How do we train the managers to have conversations around mental health?
Okay, can go first and then. So, I think one is the first most important thing is we don't want to turn managers into counselors or therapists, right? We want specialists to do their job. However, I think few things that I have noticed over my career, right? The most important thing is when you're leading a team or when you're working with your colleagues, the first thing you tend to do is notice, right? You realize that, hey, something's wrong, something's not working right. He or she's not behaving the way that they generally do. So the first and most important thing is to just pause and probably check in, right? Just having a conversation, blocking 15 minutes to just check if everything's all right. You don't know what's going on in the other person's life, right? Second, I think the way you ask, having the element of care, being sensitive, not you. I mean, I would rather say using the right terms to be able to come across from an element of care is important. Another important aspect I feel is a lot of times we miss to listen, right? A lot of times people don't really need us to solution things, they just need someone to hear them out. So listening is as equal uh, as providing solutions, in my opinion, because the solution sometimes is not uh, taking them to a therapist or getting them the tools. It is just to hear them out and solves maybe 80% of the problems, right? So and again, for me, because Multiplier is a completely remote company, I have colleagues working across 40, 50 different nationalities. We really don't understand sometimes what the difference, and again, going back to the poll that you just put up, Pinkasha, the work-life imbalance, right? Sometimes even I don't realize that, hey, it's 11 p.m. and it's just, maybe 8:30 a.m. on the other side of the globe. So because of how our lives and how modern workplaces have evolved, it becomes a little difficult to draw that line and set it in stone. It's more or less a line drawn on sand.
I think I'd resonate with Rishabh on that, because even we have to first come with the realization that even our managers are also the same human beings, just with added responsibilities and maybe more people to care for than the one level junior. So the right and I think classroom training kind of programs typically again don't tend to have don't tend to really have an impact so much, except for maybe a pointer here or two. What really works is when we have this also in a conversational style with the managers, not maybe in a setting of 4 to 5, but probably in a setting of, say, just two people within the same team or three people in the same team, and do what who really actually should get trained very well is HR to begin with, so that they help the managers in the right conversations, identify, okay, when such a situation could come up. And typically what we've seen happen, work well, is that when HR kind of just nudges, puts a nudge in that, hey, somebody in your team does seem off, have a conversation. So rather than HR going and having the conversation, putting it to the manager forward and let them have the conversation, and then come back and tell. Oh, after a few experience of a few conversations, then the managers kind of pick it up, the signals amongst various team members. So yes, manners and HR definitely need to go hand in hand in terms of understanding behavior. And a lot of times they also start relating to their own behavior as well, because at the end of the day, everybody's, the same, human being. So then they start realizing, yeah, something that I was experiencing is what I see reflecting in my teammate. And then they relate to it better, and then they try to solve it. Maybe if they have an example of their own, they try to solve it. That's what basically, makes them better. And then that's how also the employees also then more tuned to a suggestion of using the EAP program than just, putting it as out as the first thing to do.
Aditya, I wanted you to add in here that from your experience, do you want to share an instance where a manager or yourself had that conversation or shared your experience with your team that opened them up, and you saw a change in their behavior and their openness?
You're asking me to be vulnerable, I'm guessing, right? To kind of share an experience
Have you
personally.
had that experience?
I'm trying to recall it. Nothing's really jumping up, but I do have a first-hand experience that impacted me fairly deeply. Um, I had one of my first managers, probably my first manager in my professional career, was a gentleman called Steve Remedios. He was with Unilever at the time, right? Very, very people forward, unusually so at the time. And I still recall in a fairly large setting of ASMs and TSIs, right? And then these are fairly junior people, fairly operational people. He spent some time um, talking about a very personal story of something to do with his girlfriend at the time, and how he broke up and how it was impacting his work. And he literally walked out of a meeting saying, I can't do this meeting today because something's happened on my personal front. And this is way back in 2005 or 6, which is very unusual for a leader to share something like that. And I mean, I'm just correlating here, like, one of the most loved, most strongly remembered leaders from Unilever. If you go to anyone of my generation who passed through Unilever, he's famous for being, one of the most loved leaders there. So I have seen it firsthand. I've seen that vulnerability and openness by the manager really helps. And I think people did reciprocate in turn by treating him as somebody they could open up to. So um, unfortunately, and now I'm thinking back, I'm probably not emulating that. It's a reminder to myself, probably, that it should be, I should have reflected on it and maybe done something with that myself.
Thanks for sharing, Aditya. Kanika, you work with so many corporate leaders, decision makers. Do you want to share any experience that really impacted a workplace? HubSpot was a
Absolutely.
full one.
Yeah, so that was very aligned to what Aditya also said, right? Vulnerability is very important. But Pintasha, I would just want to add on very small thing here. Look, we have all these psychological safety trainings, peer-to-peer support training, empathy training. All of these work, right? They tell people, they tell leaders, human resources teams about early signs and all of that. I think one thing which is still missed in this conversation, generally when we talk about upskilling leaders and managers on these conversation with, is emotional mastery, right? The Siddharth mentioned that look, managers are humans too, right? And they have added responsibility. Now, what happens is the life of a leader is becoming so difficult that they don't know when to react and when to respond. Now imagine when a leader is angry and all their anger comes down to the team. All the trainings will go down in the bin, right? So I think we believe a lot in what you call emotional regulation and emotional mastery trainings, where leaders can actually be taught that how your prefrontal cortex can be massaged to help you actually respond to situations rather than react. And they are made to realize that the emotions that you are going to depict, the emotions that you are going to bring to the workplace, are the emotions that your team is going to emulate. So I feel that that's something that should be encouraged more now that resilience, vulnerability, all these soft skill sets are becoming so big. Yeah, so I think that's the only thing I would love to mention.
And how do we do that? Like, should we reach out to you? Should we directly get in touch with mind peers to enable?
People can reach out to you. We are partners with Pascare, so not no other better way to do that. They can reach out to us, and we're always open to even do assessments and tell people that, okay, where does this start? How do you go about it? How do you trickle down it to different functional teams? All of those things. So we can be reached out through you guys. I think that would be the best one, so that everything can be integrated together and the programs can be custom.
Yeah. Okay. Uh, Before we open to the Q&A round, a very quick question to all of you. Maybe Siddharth can start here. One mental health initiative that you have implemented or it has been implemented in your organization that works according to you.
So I'd actually say two things that do work for us and continue to work. See, we have to understand one thing, that all of our initiatives towards mental well-being and mental health and EAP programs, at the end of the day, the kind of work situation or the work environment that is built, right, practical work environment that we have, is the single most important contributing factor. I mean, if people don't have enough breaks from work, or if their regular work-life integration is not proper, any amount of therapy or counseling or talking is not going to really solve the problem that they have. So that we've been very particular about that there are periods of prolonged work and longer work hours, but we ensure that teams get the right amount, adequate amount of rest as well to recharge, right? That is one. Second, the thing that I mentioned, that we realized pretty soon on, that a lot of the contributing factors are not just things at work, but things outside of work as well. And that's when we opened up our assistance program to employee family members as well, which is, which basically helped them basically see that their family member is being taken care of, with a trusted partner. And those two practices definitely do work for us, in terms of building a more safe and progressive workspace.
Rishabh?
I think just adding on to what Siddharth said very rightly, right? I think the first being um, people having enough time to recharge for them to disconnect. We have a policy of unlimited leaves, so we really don't want to penalize anybody uh, uh, to take more time off. We don't want to define that to a number. Second, because we're a remote company, we also feel that um, to a certain degree, your stress would be lower in certain cases because you're around your family, you're in your home, you're in a safer space. You don't need to spend hours commuting depending on the city. If you're in a city like Bangalore, if you kind of understand what cross-country traffic looks like. So it just eases things on that front. Third, I think we have spent a lot of time, effort, energy, money to enable people. So having the right tools, having the right partners, if and when they need it, right? We want to ensure that the element of care is never missing. So having that in place has always been very important for us. And I think just a blend of all of these factors have worked well. We always try to see if there's something different we can do. We very recently I was reading an article on what Google does and what Unilever, Deloitte, HSBC, Accenture across the world, some of the largest organizations. What do they do, right? What are some of the best practices people adopt, whether it's a listening Monday or a no external meeting Thursday, or various different things. So these, I would say, are small factors that we implement not as a policy, but somewhere or the other people have the liberty to do what makes them feel comfortable, and that's just working for us at scale.
I'd probably also add the importance of also say, discouraging behaviors which impact other people's mental well-being as well. So on the one hand, where we are trying to, motivate and improve people's mental well-being, we also have to be very strong in terms of those aspects which can, of course, creep in through, either ignorance or maybe, just, part of a situation. But actively discouraging the factors which disturb mental peace are also equally important, so that people see that that action takes is gets will take taken when I feel that, my mental well-being is getting disturbed. And generally that also helps to, increase awareness in terms of how to conduct yourself in a workplace.
Thank you so much all for sharing it. I wanted to open the floor for questions. If anyone wants to come on audio, video, ask them to ask our panelists a question directly, please feel free to do that. We are open to all questions now. I see some really nice conversation happening on the chat. But there are no questions for now, but the suggestions were really nice. There was some conversation happening about AI, and then somebody very rightly answered it. I also see someone commented that the concept of buddy system is very, very common and it actually works. Where a buddy is someone from your team or other team that you can directly speak with and start a conversation. If the buddy identifies that you need a slightly more help or an expert help, they are able to do the needful. So, where we spoke about training the managers, having a buddy system actually works. especially for people who join an organization. They are new to a company and they are not very aware of the benefits or the company culture. A buddy system turns out to be very helpful. Suhas writes that healthy body breeds a healthy mind. Encourage and incentivize body and mind exercises outside work. Very rightly said, Suhas. Technical competence, IQ, gets people through the door, but emotional balance, EQ, keeps them standing when the storm hits. Very true. Uh, anyone has a
Kasha, can I just add on to that EQ thing, right? So that's what I was talking about, the emotional mastery aspect of it. That's very important. And I don't know who commented on that, but just giving some ideas on the kinds of tests, assessments that can be done around it. Um, I won't name the client, but we did this really good program, which is called, and we still do it, it's called Mindsets That Build Empires. Okay. And what we do in that is there are these tests which are called Rorschach tests and situational analysis tests. And the idea there is that they're so subjective in nature that the leaders, managers, and you can always do this in groups. You don't have to get the whole organization together. If you're really large, you would want to start with, let's say, 5 to 6 together and all of that. Now, these are some of the tests which put them right on the spot because of their subjectivity. Like the Rorschach test is where you show them these plotted ink paper images. And everyone gives their own interpretation of what do they think of it, what is the emotional, nail that it is hitting inside them. And then we have these expressive arts psychologists, etc., who actually interpret to tell them where exactly are they on their EQ scale, on their emotional mastery scale, and then the program starts from there. So I think I absolutely agree with the person who's written that the technology quotient, the IQ quotient can get you places, but then what's going to help you build, grow, and even get through the storms, like we were talking about resilience as well, is actually going to be the emotional quotient and the emotional mastery, the inner state. So I hope that helps. The Rorschach test, situational analysis test, and then going from there.
Suhas also mentioned that EQ assessments are often ignored when the managers are being promoted or anyone across the organizations are reviewed or promoted. So maybe one thing we could take away from this webinar today can also be that why don't you have these tests which are also readily available? There are resources available and make them as part of the review and performance process.
Tasha, hi. Do you mind if I ask one question?
Yes, please.
Sure. So hi Rishabh, Siddharth, Kanika. So I think just what I'm trying to understand from Rishabh and Siddharth here is that you guys have been working with big teams, right? And I know like the structures and the well-being programs you do. So I know there are components that well-being plans directly affect, right? Like attrition or maybe absenteeism. So just trying to understand from you both that what do you think has a direct impact of having a well-being partner on which component? Like maybe your absenteeism is improved, maybe the organization's attrition rate is reduced. So just trying to understand, like, have you observed something that is directly impacted? So I think anyone can take up that question. Rishabh, Siddharth, whoever wants to take over. Over to you, Pikasha.
Sure. I think I don't have a very straightforward or pinpointed area, but I think from a from a from the lens of employees knowing that they have support, I think it goes a long way. Again, in that element of care, right? It sometimes becomes very difficult to gauge that, hey, is absenteeism increased or decreased, or has productivity increased or decreased? A lot of times you can't contribute it to a single factor. A lot of times it's just multiple things that come into play. So while I don't have, or I don't really know specifically if that has made an impact, I think it's more of a nuanced way, as at least in terms of how we want to look at it. And we just want to believe that at the end of the day, the employee or whoever else is consuming or needs the support, right? They should not feel that we've not done our due diligence or we've not done our bit to ensure that they are in safe hands, right? In a way, everything that goes on in business is majorly people driven. So if we can't do the absolute best for our own team, I think we're failing in doing everything else. That becomes of paramount importance, at least for us.
This helps.
Yeah, I think I echo with Rishabh on that, that there is like right now, there's no straightforward metric that can help you identify, okay, because of the EAP program, such and such thing changed or improved. But this one thing that we tried to measure and which actually gave us some insight in terms of the sessions like that are happening, whether they are like just first time sessions or whether they are repeat sessions. And you're slowly seeing a equal mix in terms of people going for repeat sessions. So which helps us to also, helps us to basically identify that the program by itself has gained acceptance. And then if there are repeat sessions, means there are individuals who are finding it useful enough and taking like a holistic approach in terms of not just like a one-off session, but maybe, 2, 3, 4 sessions, so that, they're reaching a conclusion in terms of, whatever problem they were facing, or, whatever conversation they wanted to have. So that was just one metric which has helped. And yes, overall, it shows up not as a metric, but maybe in sometimes if you monitor some of the employee chatter in some of the employee discussion boards, it does come up once in a while that, yeah, they have this program which helps. And that maybe I think that's recognition enough.
Got it. Thank you, Siddharth.
I see a question by Yogita. Can you suggest a test for employees we can conduct on mental health?
Hey, Kanika, if you're around,
Guys,
maybe up your alley. Oh, I see
Yeah,
you.
I just responded. One is the core OM, which is clinical outcome routine evaluation. It's actually free and it has been, it's a standardized scale, which actually tells you a person's overall functioning, well-being, everyday stuff. So this is not just like, hey, we are diagnosing them of something. It's a very good self-assessment to know that what are the areas the functioning is getting impacted. So that's one. And then second, you guys can Google, there's a workplace well-being index as well. We're happy to send the links if needed. But both these tests are available. And the beauty of the core OM test is it's available in multiple languages. So, the Hindi and all the dialects that you can think of, it's available in multiple languages.
thanks, Kanika. What are some points you would suggest to mid-scale companies who are in the journey of scaling up and want to make the best policies for their employees, and also which are doable and achievable?
For work-life balance, I think,
On
as far
work-life
as
balance. Yes. Sorry.
yeah, specifically on work-life balance. Any suggestions? I mean, maybe I can just kick it off. It's a hot and much debated topic between Mr. Narayan Murthy on one side and a lot of other folks on the other one. Um, Nikasha, keep me honest here, but I think protecting weekends has been something that Basque has done fairly effectively, which I feel helps all of our employees. There isn't much of a culture of work bleeding into the weekends, barring very rare exceptions. And I think that's something people appreciate. Even some flexibility around when you start and stop work, which most of our employees have, I think helps people optimize a lot between the personal and the professional. So couple of practices I'm noticing helping a lot. Rishabh, Siddharth, anything that has fundamentally.
I think can just add a couple of things. We do this, right? Like I mentioned, we're a remote company. A lot of times it becomes so difficult for me to coordinate with my counterpart sitting in Mexico, right? And to coordinate these things, a lot of times we cross that threshold of your work hours, right? Typically, if I need to have a very fresh conversation with a colleague sitting out of Mexico, I would be half dead by the end of my day, and he or she would be very up and alive by then. But uh, what we do is we define these work hours. We say block your calendars off. You pick the hours that you want to work. We give flexibility to our team to walk your dog if required, 30 minutes in between, add in a workout slot, whatever helps, right? Because there's no one fit for all kind of solution here. It's just very, very subjective to each individual, right? So that's what we typically do. It's helped us. We've scaled tremendously in the past couple of years, and we'll continue to. And I think these are some of the principles that we stand by. And it's helped us. I'm pretty sure some of these things could help other growing organizations as well.
I would like to just add here one thing that I've learned from Aditya is that the way he manages his calendar, and it really helps me to prioritize things. I see a lot of even the travel from a meeting to office is on his calendar. That helps me understand person's priority and then be mindful of when and how to reach out to that person. And I started to inculcate it in my working style also. And also his help in prioritizing work. Not everything could be super urgent, so asking a question back, how urgent it is, how will it impact your work right now, how important it is very important. So being very transparent, having transparent calendars also, I think, help a lot of people understand each other, especially in remote cultures where you don't get to meet each other, you don't understand what's going on in each other's uh, outside work life. This helps. Okay, so brings us to the end of the webinar today. Thank you to Kanika. She had to leave, she had to drop off. So thank you, Siddharth. Thank you, Rishabh. And thank you, Aditya. Thank you, Team Mind Peers SRs, if you're there. Thank you so much. And thanks for everyone for showing up today, having this interactive conversation around mental health. I hope we all got to learn a lot of things. Thanks everyone for taking out the time. Have a lovely evening. We are recording this session. We'll put it up on our YouTube channel. You'll all receive an email by tomorrow in case you wanted to share it with your peers.
Thanks, Kasha, for being a great host.
Yeah,
Thank you,
everyone.
Thank you
everyone.
so much. Thanks, Mikasha. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, Siddharth and Rishabh.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks, Daisy.